You ever feel like you're caught up in something huge, something way beyond your control? It's kind of like being on this massive, unstoppable wheel, the wheel of history that just keeps on turning, shaping the fate of, well, everyone. Today, we're going to dig into how this wheel works by looking at this one crucial moment from the ancient world. It's a story that really shows you how empires rise and how they fall.
So here's the question, right? It's the ultimate underdog story. How does a tiny, seemingly insignificant nation actually become great? Is it just about having brilliant leaders, or is there some bigger force at play? We're going to find our answer in the story of ancient Israel.
To really get a handle on Israel's golden age, we have to zoom out, way out. See, no nation, big or small, ever exists in a vacuum, and Israel's story was absolutely shaped by the giants that were all around it.
When you think about ancient Israel at its absolute peak, two names probably pop into your head: David and Solomon. Their time is remembered as this golden age of power, of prosperity. And look, they were definitely skilled leaders, no question about it. But the real key to their success? It wasn't just their own genius. It was the specific moment in history they just happened to be living in.
You see, for centuries before David and Solomon ever came along, this entire region was just completely dominated by superpowers. To the north, you had the mighty Hittite Empire. Down south, the Egyptian Empire. And over to the east, the Middle Assyrian Empire. These giants controlled everything, leaving a small nation like Israel with absolutely zero room to grow. It was totally boxed in. But then, around 1200 BC, something absolutely dramatic happened. This mysterious group of seafaring raiders, known to history only as the Sea Peoples, just swept through the region. Historians still argue about where they came from, but their impact? It was catastrophic, and it was undeniable. They were this massive, disruptive force that just shattered the old world order. And as those old empires started to crumble, something new could finally grow. The Sea Peoples' invasion caused the Hittite and Middle Assyrian empires to totally collapse. Egypt, it survived, but it was so weakened it was forced to pull back. So all of a sudden, the superpowers that had run the show for centuries were just gone. This created this huge power vacuum, a super rare window of opportunity where smaller kingdoms like Israel could finally pop up, expand, and really thrive. This was the world that David and Solomon walked into. But the wheel of history, it never, ever stops turning. The exact conditions that allowed Israel's golden age to happen, they were temporary. That power vacuum started to close, and a new, frankly terrifying threat was quietly building up on the horizon.
For almost 500 years, Assyria had been kind of a sleeping giant. Well, now it was awake. This reborn Neo-Assyrian Empire, which you see in the Bible as just Assyria or Ashur, was a military machine. It was expanding with this ruthless efficiency from the northeast. A collision with all the smaller kingdoms in its path was, let's face it, inevitable. The Golden Age was officially over.
So now we're going to zoom in from this epic scale of empires, right down to the despot political drama happening in the northern kingdom of Israel. What do you do when a seemingly unstoppable superpower just shows up on your border?
Israel had two different kings who faced this exact threat, but they chose two completely different ways to deal with it. First up was King Menahem. He chose appeasement. His whole plan was basically to pay the Assyrians to go away. Later on, you get King Pekah. He chose confrontation, trying to build a military alliance to fight back. So two kings, one massive threat, and two very different gambles. All right, let's look at Menahem's choice first. When the Assyrian army rolls up, he offers them a bribe that is just staggering, 1,000 talents of silver. To put that into perspective for you, that's about 34 tons of silver. Today, it would be worth somewhere around $600 million, and he got the money by hitting the wealthiest people in his kingdom with a heavy tax. His goal wasn't just to save his kingdom, but to use the empire's muscle to prop up his own shaky throne. And you know what? In the short term, it actually worked. The Assyrian king took the money and left. Menahem had bought himself some time, but he hadn't solved the problem, not at all. He'd only delayed it. That wheel was still turning, and the Assyrian Empire was only getting bigger and stronger.
So, a few years later, under King Pekah, the Assyrians came back. But this time, they weren't interested in money. Pekah had tried to put together an anti-Assyrian team, and the empire responded with just overwhelming force. They sliced off huge chunks of Israel's territory, all of its northern and eastern lands, including places like Galilee and Gilead.
And the Assyrians didn't just conquer land, they started using this brutal new tactic: They would uproot entire populations from their homes and forcibly move them to distant parts of the empire. This wasn't just about control, it was a deliberate policy. The whole idea was to shatter a people's national identity, to break their will to ever fight back, and basically to unmake them as a nation.
This whole situation just created an atmosphere of pure desperation. And in a really bizarre twist, the kingdoms of Aram and northern Israel, who had been bitter enemies for generations, they team up to try and stop Assyria. But then they did something even stranger. When the southern kingdom of Judah said, "No thanks, we're not joining your risky little club," they turned around and attacked Judah instead. It was just this chaotic, self-defeating mess, a desperate response to a threat they just couldn't handle.
So far, this just seems like a straightforward story of bad politics and even worse decisions, right? But the story itself, the way it's told, makes a dramatic pivot right here. It zooms out to a much, much larger perspective. So, is this just politics? Are all these kings and empires just acting out of their own self-interest, creating all this chaos? Or is there another force at play here? Maybe a hidden hand that's guiding this unstoppable wheel?
The biblical text reframes this entire story with one single stunning sentence. That bizarre attack on Judah by Aram and Israel, it wasn't just their idea. The text says that the Lord sent them. And just like that, the chaos is no longer random.
From this point of view, the wheel of history isn't just spinning on its own. The rise of Assyria, the desperate gambles of these kings, the weird alliances, they're all seen as part of a much larger, guided plan. The kings and the empires, they all think they're in control, but they're really just instruments, moving exactly as the hand on the wheel directs them.
What's so fascinating is how this ancient story is asking a question that is just as relevant today as it was 3,000 years ago. It forces us to ask the same fundamental questions about our own world.
That wheel of history is still turning. Superpowers still rise and fall. Nations face crises that feel totally overwhelming. And people, whether they're kings or just regular folks like us, are still forced to choose between making short-term calculations and having a much wider, deeper perspective on what's really going on. So that leaves us with one last question to think about. When you look at the chaotic events of our own time, when that wheel turns in your own life, what do you see? Do you just see the desperate gambles and the political math of humanity? Or do you see a hand on the wheel?